Welcome to episode 3 of the Rugby Bits and Pieces. We're having a bit of a fun one today, and I'm joined by Kooks and Thala. Gents, welcome back. Yeah, been quite a fun segment, and we have a bit of an entertaining one coming our way now. We are going to go through the Rugby World Cup 2023 qualified teams, and we are going to list why they will either win the World Cup or will not win the World Cup. And by list, I mean we're each going to give one little vibe. I'm sure I'll have an exit strategy on a couple of them. For some of the tier 2 sides, we can decide whether they're going to make it out the pool or if they're going to win a game or anything like that. So that's
Shaun,
what yes.
Sorry, are we considering Wales as tier 2 or just the Dragons?
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of our of our views at Wales. It was great being the 20th best podcast in Wales.
Oh man, we've got to buy. Oh, Kooks, that is sensational. I think Wales a little far down the list. We'll get to that later. I need to think of. Oh, what a way to start! Right
Wales. On
that sensational bombshell. Just for the record, to all of the Dragons fans that do listen, 3/4 of the Rugby Bits podcast do support you. I'm definitely one of them. Kooks, we're going to have to, you know what we must organize? We must organize an away trip, all of us, go to Wales, and we go record a podcast from a Dragons game. I think we'll have to do it. It's the only way Kooks is going to make it up to anyone. Right. The way I've got this list set up is quite interesting. We've got a couple of no-brainers up front. But Thala, I'm going to start with you. Thala, I'm going to go. Kooks, you must jump in straight afterwards. Why are France winning the World Cup?
Most consistent team for the last 4 years and the team with the most all-round depth.
Playing at home and I think, most all-round depth as well, and a freaking into pont.
Yeah, mine is playing at home, but also the way they've built up to this, it just makes sense. It's very Springboks 2007 about it. On the other end of the coin, right? I'll try that again sometime soon in the future. But Thala, why are France not winning the World Cup?
They can't, or their matchup against South Africa is the worst matchup for them. So South Africa makes things awkward for them because obviously with most other teams, they can almost bully them with obviously their big players. South Africa, obviously, they match them, if not exceed them in that respect. So if it's a quarterfinal against South Africa, that's when I'm 50-50 with that game. But I can see how that either they can be taken out by a quarterfinal against South Africa, or the effort they have to to get out in order to beat South Africa in a quarterfinal will take them out in the semi-final. So the reason they won't, or they might not win, or they won't win, is the Springboks and their pack of 8.
Yeah, I think that they're in the tough side of the draw. I think also Ireland, if they do come against Ireland has got an attack to sort of open them up. France, this game is built a lot on how good their defense is, and an amazing job Shaun Edwards has done in the last 4 years. And I think Ireland, if you look at that first half in this year, probably still the game of the year, were able to open them up and rip them to shreds. And I think Ireland do back themselves to be able to open up the French. And I think if they meet in the quarterfinal, and I think Ireland will back themselves to open up and beat them. So I think. And plus, obviously, the Springboks, the juggernaut that the Boks are. So I think if France don't win, it'll be due to just being on the tough side of the draw.
I feel the same reason why they're going to win it is also probably why they're going to lose it, and that's because they're playing at home. I feel their home crowd are going to work them if they start struggling.
Sure, those whistles.
Yo, man, imagine a sold out Stade Francais hating on your own team.
Also, the Joe meltdown. It's been 4 good years. French rugby is due something to happen.
Can't believe you went there.
It's true though.
Yeah.
They had that remember the Australia tour in that last minute where they had the game and then was it Saran? I can't remember who it was who passed the ball to no one. And then Australia like picked the ball up and went to go score. So I think they've had at least one out of their system. And then Dulon with that game against Scotland where he didn't want to kick the ball out.
Well, that is true.
So they've had enough just to spice things up. I think let's hope for their sakes it's out of their system.
Thala, I mean, like Galtier getting fired mid-tournament, things like that, like being mid-tournament.
That was 2015, eh?
Don't tell me about knock-ons and I'm talking like girls just walking out or Bernard Laporte coming back from nowhere, just been like, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being president
from jail.
On a coach this team. Yeah, exactly. Like that's like Toulouse are releasing players now for the World Cup. Like that's what was in the French Street big. That I mean, Mark Livermont in 2011 was basically fighting for his job the whole tournament and ends up in the final.
What do you mean? He didn't have this job.
He didn't have it. He was
the coach in the finals.
that is true. Yeah, that is true. But just don't mention the words Craig Joubert in France. It's not going to end well for you.
Yes, or Scotland.
Dussetour was player of the year and coach of the year in that year.
I've still never seen someone win player of the year for having one great quarterfinal. One great final. Like his one game in the final was better than the whole of Rugby Nation's whole season. It's like you're so good in that day. He was like, there's no one who's played better than this consistently the whole year than this one man's 80 minutes.
Oh, if France gets us started off with such a lively conversation, I tell you, the All Blacks are going to really fire things up. Kooks, you can lead with this one now that you're so warm, and I'm not sure how you're going to burn the Dragons in this, but why are New Zealand winning this?
It's just, I think if they do win the World Cup, it's going to be Beauden Barrett, Richie Mo'unga, and Jordy Barrett sort of turning it on for all tournament long. I still think this All Black side's best bet at winning is to sort of throw the game around and go 100% pure All Blacks and just, pretty much outskill everyone and outpace everyone. The way they played against pretty much the first 20 minutes, the 80 minutes, probably they blueprinted as to how they can win the World Cup. I don't think they're not as structurally sound, or the pack isn't as good as, like, say, 2015, where they were just dominant all over. I think now their biggest trait is their ball players. And I think if they forwards can sort of just do enough to allow their backline to cook, they're going to be a very, very, very hard side to stop.
Because one of Brodie Retallick or Ardie Savea is player of the tournament. So building on Cooks' point, basically, if those forwards can at the very least basically perform like they performed on Saturday and match, the South Africas, the Islands, the Frances, the sky's the limit. And I think then you can make an argument that either Retallick or a Whitelock or Scott Barrett or Ardie Savea basically becomes player of the tournament because of that.
Okay. And why aren't they going to win it, Cooks?
Ian Foster. Simple as that. He's going to pick a terrible team from time to time. Like, it's just, like, or Joe Schmidt control. I think Ian Foster is probably holding the side back. Even the side's been 4 years of them sort of struggling and sort of being all over the place. But I think Ian Foster is probably going to be the biggest hindrance. Just in terms of combinations. Like Tyler said, just pick your best. Like, the team that plays against the Springboks, also, they need to play almost every single game, and no time to be mixing and matching combinations. And I think the combinations is where they might lose it, whether it's in the forwards or, like he decides to just, like what Shaun says, stick with the Rico 13, which you probably will by now, or find more ways to push Shaun off. But I think Ian Foster, if they do this, it's going to be on the coaches, unless he's basically planning the world's greatest swan song after being bashed by his home country and leaving with the World Cup as sort of a farewell and leave me alone.
I think they play down to the opposition and play up to the opposition somewhat. So they're out of the 4 teams, they're the most likely to lose to, like, England or Fiji or Australia coming from the other side of the group. But my more serious reason is that surely, guys, we haven't been, like, we've seen 4 years of people being played out of positions. Like, if they win this just throws rugby out of the toilet, or into the toilet actually, because you have a flyer playing at fullback, you have a wing playing at center, you have a fullback playing at center, you have you might have a lock playing at flank. You know, all of these things. You have Dane Coles, question mark. Like those things, they can't win without having that consistent team. So the reason why they won't win is their match day 23 still doesn't make sense.
Yeah, tell me about it. I was actually going to go with Dane Coles. I think the more they play him, the more chance they've got of not winning it. Right. So 3 more teams make up this group. Little outliers, but Italy, Uruguay, Namibia. Kooks, I'm gonna lead you in with Italy, and then we can discuss them, and then we'll go through Uruguay and Namibia. But Kooks, are Italy going to win it?
No, and the thing is due to the horrific game management at times. Watching Italy try to close a rugby game hurts. Like, just like, I don't know. Like, it's like they don't want to win games. It's just like, they'll be fantastic for 70 minutes. Lead, and then one of the scrum halves is just like going to refuse to box kick. They're going to refuse to kick to the corner. They're just like, the game management at the end is going to cost them dearly, and they could get hurt against the French, and especially the All Blacks.
Reason why they will win is they high-key have a very good record against France. Like, they seem to just give them a very tough match. Like, they've comparatively, they haven't really lost by too much against them. I don't know if it's also because France feels like, no, we should outrun these people, and that plays into Italy's chaos ball. But, I could see them actually having good games against France and New Zealand. They're like almost the perfect teams for them to play. Because they aren't, they don't really go into sort of the more traditional structure play that, South Africa and Ireland would do.
Okay. Oof. Okay, so I assume with Uruguay and Namibia, we'll be discussing why they're going to make it out the group. Thala, I'll start with you, and then Kooks can jump in. Why are Uruguay going to make it out the group, and why aren't they?
Look, why they will is Santiago Arata, who's, you can make an argument he's maybe the top 5 scrum halves in the world. I think he'd be, have a good argument for that. But yeah, he's brilliant. He's, almost like a Latino DuPont in some ways. Like, he's really, really good. And yeah, in terms of, like in that lower ranking of tier 2 teams, they've been sort of the one rising up. One of the ones that are rising up the most, so they're doing quite well. The reason why they won't win, obviously, those reasons are quite obvious. It's a very tough group and all that sort of stuff, but I wouldn't be too surprised. I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be too surprised if they managed to beat Italy somehow.
Kooks?
Oh, I just think with Namibia, like, for them to make it out there, they're going to need to find Susie, who sort of food poisoned the All Blacks in the 95 World Cup, and ask her to do a job on the rest of the group, and just and sort of make a way. But I think I do think they will. I think they'll have a good World Cup. I mean, I see Matthew Price joined them. Manus Gutierrez has obviously been the coach, and I think they'll have a decent showing out. I think they'll be targeting that Italy game, and I think we'll be hoping to sort of leave some sort of upset there. I think for them, beating Italy, if that will be that's their big win, because I think I just can't see them not getting hurt against France and New Zealand.
Oh, there's going to be some damage done there. I think it's pretty much set that New Zealand and France will go through there. We're just not sure quite what order. Right, Pool B. Now this one gets fun. South Africa, Ireland, Scotland, Tonga, Romania. I think we'll deal with South Africa, Ireland, and Scotland individually, and then we can tackle Tonga and Romania together. But, Thala, South Africa, how are they going to win it? And what is going to stop them from winning it? And then, Kooks, you can jump in after.
Okay, the reason why they win it is they have the best knockout rugby, game plan or team in World Rugby at the moment. They've got the scrum, they've got the set piece, they've got the rolling maul, they've got a good sort of aerial game. They're good with the kick chase. They're great with their defense. They can put pressure on you. They don't make many mistakes. They make you make the risks. It's the perfect mixture for tournament rugby. So that's why, South Africa's seen, is, I think the team, if you ask the other big teams, which teams they don't want to face, it's probably South Africa for that reason. It's going to be a tough game to try and beat them. They're the hardest team to beat out of the top tier nations. I'm not saying that they're impossible to beat, but it takes a lot more to beat them than it would, arguably even France or Ireland. And the reason why they won't win is they're not consistent. I can't trust South Africa to put in 3 good performances in a row. And maybe they'll need even 4 good performances in a row, because I think if South Africa has to face France in a quarterfinal, I know I said earlier that France is a bad matchup for South Africa, but South Africa trying to beat France in the quarterfinal of a home World Cup to France, I think I was saying this to Kooks on Twitter, that's not happening. For someone that watches the WWE a lot like I do, I know when, the producers at the back can change a match somehow. So there will be angles upon angles of hits and rucks and non-tries and knock-ons and head-high hits and everything that will come out if France is under risk of not making the last 2 weeks of the World Cup. So South Africa has to face New Zealand in the quarterfinal. That's not a great matchup for them. But if they face France, it's not going to work. But even if they beat someone in the quarterfinal, I can't trust them to have 3 good matches in a row. Like, they haven't shown that pretty much throughout the Ninaba era. I don't have much reason to think it will change now.
Oh, for Springboks to win it, I think they will. I think, Thala mentioned a whole bunch, but I think for me, it's the sort of the X factor they're adding to their attack. We know how good the pack is and the amount of pressure they're putting on, but I think the X factor they have in their attack now, they're sort of adding, is such a massive weapon, because they will, in the words of Rassie Erasmus, fuck teams up physically on most days. And then now to be able to add, especially the way like Vue Leroux's playing, Devin Willemse, Kurtley Orange, the guys coming through that, and Marnie Lebok adding a massive, massive dimension to their attack. I do think that that will be the X factor. That will be slightly different from 2019. That's something that's definitely strengthened the Springboks, and there's been enough glimpses against Australia and New Zealand to show that our attack is evolving, and it's evolving enough for us to be able to score points in the World Cup, in those knockout games, and sort of, even if we do get a little bit of a shootout, we do have the weapons to sort of to sort of perform and sort of match those sides. And for us to not to win the World Cup, Handré Pollard's fitness, that's probably the biggest cloud having the Springboks is Handré Pollard's fitness. I think we know what he does bring to the side, and I think, goal kicking wise, and just experience and level here. And I think for Minderbok, I think is massive for the Springboks. But I love the option of having him as the backup, something completely different. But I think for the way the Springboks play, a lot of it is dependent on Handré Pollard's fitness, and I think he's probably the missing piece of the cog. Now, obviously, he has with him obviously not playing, and hasn't played for a while for the Springboks, and hasn't played international rugby for a while. So it's actually going to be interesting how he gets back, and we know how great he looked for Leicester this season. So him coming back is so crucial for the Springboks.
Yeah, I believe while we will win it is we don't have we have about 2 or 3 game plans we can use against you. So I think prepping for the Springboks is going to be one of the things that will probably undo a few teams. And the reason why I think so. I think we've been adding layers. We've got a couple options. We can run it. We can bring out the kicking game. We haven't brought out the kicking game in this year, but a whole bunch of last year as well. So, I think we've got options. We've got other weapons, and the reason why we won't win it is I feel we're a game and a half short of the World Cup. I wish we had another 160 minutes, 120 minutes extra to play. Thala, after you abused me there, Ireland.
I just asked a question. But okay, let's start with the negative with Ireland. let's start with the positive. The reason why they will is I'm so sick and tired of hearing the whole quarterfinals joke. Like, it's so unoriginal. It's one of those, like, you get to a point now where you're like, okay, we get it. They can't make out of quarterfinal. I mean, obviously a lot of it's been their fault, and this time it really won't be their fault if they're beaten by one of the 4 best teams in the world. But yeah, I really hope that we are spared from just the same narratives, man. So if Ireland can make it out of the quarterfinal, I'd be pretty happy with that, just for that reason. But yeah, obviously, and I'm sure Kooks and Shaun, you can talk about it, there's a lot to love about Ireland in terms of just how they set themselves up, their attacking game, their kicking game. And yeah, I think that win against France, especially in the Six Nations earlier this year, showed, and even arguably this win against South Africa and New Zealand last year, shows that they have the maturity to really go through hurt and adversity, as Andy Farrell says, to win a game. Reason why they won't win is, please see above on pool A and B and the draw. Yeah, it's going to be, if it's France, I don't think they win it. I think France is a bad matchup for them. If it's New Zealand, I still believe they can tear New Zealand apart. Yeah, they probably have to go through France to win the World Cup, and I can't see them doing it, unfortunately. And obviously, they probably, out of the big 4 teams, they probably have the least depth. So obviously, losing, a Sexton, if once he finishes his politeness school, a Doris, a Ryan, that matters a lot more to them.
I think I'll start positive. I'm in a good mood today. I think the reason why they'll win it is structurally Ireland's probably the best team in the world. Their attack structure is, oh Jesus, I could watch them. It's beautiful to watch, and it's so hard to replicate because there's so many factors there, and it's sort of they're probably the only way they're the only side that can play the way they do. It's just when it comes together, it's like a beautiful symphony, and it's very good to watch. And I think that structure, and I think the Springboks, they showed a different side to it. So I thought the Springboks, what they did very well was putting them under pressure in the breakdown. I thought maybe they could collapse, but the kicking game sort of came through, and they showed another way where they can beat you, and they also adjust very well. I mean, they lost. If you look at the other pick against the All Blacks, having lost that first test, struggling with Aaron Smith's ability to hit the third, fourth runner, they adjusted to it, and then also rose to the occasion in the last test to probably put together their best performance other than the one against France in the last 4 years. So I think that's what will help them win. For them to lose the World Cup is Johnny Sexton, and it's twofold. One, he shouts at another referee and swears at them. 2, I don't know if Johnny Sexton can stay fit for a month and a half into 6-7 games. Yeah. You'll need him for about 7 games probably, and that's my only concern. Johnny Sexton, he's always due to have a little niggle as a head knock or something, and that's for Ireland. It's as important as 100 points for the Springboks. I still feel Johnny Sexton is probably the most important player in world rugby, because if he doesn't play, yes, there's the Crowleys, there's the Ross Byrne, but Ireland, that system just does not work as well without Sexton, in the way he combines and pulls things together. A fit Johnny Sexton for me is if he's the big key for Ireland.
Can I just interject quickly? If I'm Ireland, Sexton only plays the Romania and the South Africa pool games. He gets a week off for Scotland. You need to be able to beat Scotland or get whatever result you need to get from Scotland with Ross Byrne or Jack Crowley. And then he only plays those 2 games, and then he's fresh for the quarter semis and finals. He might be rusty, but at the very least, he's fresh. I think at this stage, you have to prioritize him being fresh than him, having a lot of minutes under his belt.
Interesting. I can't add too much more to that. Right, Scotland. So,
start with
for
Kooks.
me, no. I'm gonna knock this off first, and then we'll go to Kooks. So Scotland are gonna win the World Cup, and I'm not talking about just getting out of the group. Scotland will win the World Cup for one reason, and that's their KBA Huey Pilotu vibe. Like, they just want to run all day. And they've got a little bit of forwards to keep going, but I think if their midfield strikes like we've seen them strike, they're going to absolutely really dominate. And if they can keep that together the whole way. Flip, it would be sensational. The reason why they don't win the World Cup is because the man that should be playing 15 is going to be on the end of a microphone and not on the field. So Stuart Hogg retiring is the reason why they won't win the World Cup. Cooksy.
So the reason I think Scotland's going to win the World Cup without talking about Finn Russell, this is going to be very hard to do.
I hope he signs for Dragons one day. I really do.
That's the only time I'll support the Dragons. The only time. I think for them is like, I think Shaun, you hit the nail on the head. You took on Hugh Paludu. I think Scotland sort of falling in this, some of the All Blacks where it's almost going to be all out attack to sort of, and they find a great balance in their background with Hugh Paludu there in the centers. I think the combination does them absolute wonders. And I think that's going to be the big difference in them this year. They've had a 12-13 combination like that, and I think it'll be a massive difference. And I think also home conditions. I mean Finn Russell's played in France; he knows the conditions, so I think that'll suit them well. The reason they won't win the World Cup is some sort of bar in France will cause disarray because players will go drinking, and then Gregor Townsend's going to drop like 4 or 5 players, and then it's going to be chaos. And the other reason why they won't win the World Cup is the fact they don't play England possibly until the semi-final. Scotland can't string. Scotland's got one great performance in them, and we've seen them this year. And I think they've not. I can see them having a great performance against Springboks, say maybe, or against Ireland, beating one of those two, and then going to lose to Tonga. That's unfortunately they can't string together. They can't string together great performances week in, week out, but they can definitely string together great benders week in, week out, and you've seen that under the Gregor Townsend era.
And as you mentioned, Finn knows a couple of bars.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I would love to be in the Scotland camp with Finn. Oh, man, we'd have a great time in France. You'll take me to a place where you find all the best cold ones, and I know you'll take me just out of the Captain's Run on a Friday.
Thala. So, for just on the rugby side, Scotland has a very underrated defense. Like their defense has been consistently the strongest defense in the Six Nations the last 4 seasons, if I'm not mistaken, or something close to that. So shout out to Steve Tandy for that. Like they really make you work in order for you to score tries. I think they've got a good structure, and that doesn't really give teams a lot. It doesn't give teams a lot. So that game against South Africa versus Scotland will really test that South African sort of newfound attack. Andre Pollard is going to be probably a bit rusty. He hasn't really played in this sort of the new age Springboks, if I can put it like that, because the evolution started when he left the team. So he might not be necessarily as comfortable with, us sort of trying to play a little bit more of a heads up type of style in that case. There's some ingredients there for an ambush for Scotland against South Africa in the first game. If Scotland can convince themselves that the Springboks are playing in white instead of green, that will make it better as well. And then, we've mentioned all the reasons not to. Look, Kooks, I think there's also a big reason why they can't. Kooks has had a bad run with his sports teams and his sports players for the last few months and years. I can't see it ending with Finn Russell here, unfortunately.
Thala, that hurts. But
it's true.
Kick a man. It is very, very true. Very, very true. So it's not a good omen for the Springboks as well, if you put it that way as well.
But look, to be serious though, very quickly, I just can't see Scotland being able to beat 3 of the top 5 or 3 of the top 4 in the next, in like over 7-8 weeks. Maybe 1, 2 is a struggle. Like Cook said, I can definitely see a win against the Box. We're all in disarray. They lose to Tonga.
Okay. Now, Tonga, Romania, reasons why they are going to get out of the pool. I think Tonga, in order for them to get out of the pool, is if Ireland and South Africa take the game half-heartedly with a side that's not switched on, because we know they're going to run some dirt trackers there. Scotland is touch and go. So I think Tonga could make it out of the pool if South Africa and Ireland are too busy focused on everyone else. Tonga not making it out of their pool, probably because they've got all the stars and they just haven't got anything to gel. Romania, I can't even think about how they could make it out of the pool, to be very frank. But they could possibly squeeze in a win over Tonga, and that's because they're too focused on the other three to try and bag a win. But yeah, Thala, you jump in on the bottom two of that Group B.
Just very quickly, Romania, I mean, if you watch the Squid Rugby previews, he's obviously really good at that. Shout out to Squid. Romania, not apparently, they have a really, really, really good rolling maul, and like, they sort of close combat at, like, rolling maul scrums and stuff is really, really good. And they've added an attacking game to that as well. So you could see yourself again, like, unfortunately for our poor Scottish listeners, there is a world where you can be like, after 30, 40 minutes, what's going on here? I could definitely see that happening, just because they will bring it up front. And like you said, playing the second teams of Ireland and South Africa and Scotland, like, there's a chance there Romania can at least shake the table against one of them. Kooks, maybe you can talk about Tonga.
I think, Tonga and Romania for me in the same boat, especially more as Tonga. This group reminds me a lot of the Springboks group in 2015 with Japan and Scotland, where you could possibly see three sides on 3 wins. And because, say, Scotland could throw ahead, but Scotland, by beating Ireland or even the Springboks, does sort of shake things up, and then Tonga could sort of do something. So for someone like Tonga, they can actually almost just like creep their way in, but just because everyone in the group is actually beating each other. And I think that's probably, and Romania, that's probably the best chance of making it, because I do think there's going to be an upset in that pool. I think that pool is too dangerous for them not to, for the apple cards to fall. I mean, all the Springboks in Ireland can just make it very, very boring and just beat everyone. But I do think there's going to be some sort of upset in the pool, and then sort of Tonga sort of can, or even Romania can sort of creep their way through.
Oh, fun. Well, I mean, now that we've got through the serious side of Rugby World Cup 2023, we can actually get to the fun side. So Pool C and D.
So the Barbie side of the pools, not the Oppenheimer side.
Yes. So for those fans that listen to us that are based in Europe, so we've just finished the Champions Cup. We're now going to go to the Challenge Cup. Okay. So Pool C and Pool D. Right. So Pool C: Wales, Australia, Fiji, Georgia, Portugal. Thala, let's get you going with a bit of Wales, the yes and the no on them, and then Kooks, you can jump in.
And making them out of the pool. Okay, so Wales making out of the pool. You rate their chances against Fiji maybe getting a win there. I mean, they just got beaten by Georgia, so it's not good in that respect. Australia, they've turned the tide there with their record against them. Can they beat Portugal? So it's a bit touch and go there. Yeah, I can't put any hopes on Wales doing anything further than maybe a quarterfinal. Yeah,
look, that's your positive.
That's my positive. The only reason why I wouldn't fully go and bet if I was a betting person. The only reason why I wouldn't go and fully bet on Wales not making out of the group is because Georgia and Fiji, I would love for them to have a few more games under their belt against top tier opposition, because it will be pretty much almost do or die for them in those games. And they obviously don't play as many games against top tier opposition than Wales does. But yeah, it's so there for them. Like, that team is, in the words of Shaquille O'Neal, barbecue chicken alert. Like, you can see someone cooking them to absolute bits. And guess what Wales' first game is? Against Fiji. Yeah, so you can definitely see it falling into pieces very quickly. So, look, if you look at South Africa 2003, and they seem to be doing a bit of a Kamstaldraad vibes here, we at least beat Samoa. So that's the hope that Wales can have, that they made it out of the group and then got thrashed in the quarterfinals.
For Wales to win it, I think Warren Gatland is very, very good in knockout rugby, besides when he gets to semi-finals. But I mean, he is very, very good and the way they play. I mean, like you always say when they play the Springboks, they're one of the few sides that can almost outbox the box, where they're disciplining their kicking game, sort of putting pressure on the position. I think that's a way for them, especially in the knockout stages where they can put teams under pressure. And I think that they still have the likes of Bigger and they still have Halfpenny there, so they still can put the opposition under pressure with their kicking play and with their pack. And I think they'll definitely be looking to do that. I think knockout rugby does tend to suit them. So I think that's their best way to win after they get through the group stages. And the opposite of a previous chat is they are on the easier side of the pool, and they can fancy themselves against an England or Argentina in the quarters. And the reason why they won the World Cup, they've got 5 players in their training camp side. They play for the Dragons. That's going to sort of hinder their progress. Those guys are going to sort of, just carry them. You can't come last. You can't come second last in the URC and then rock up in the World Cup final. So those guys will, those Dragon Knights there sort of could bring the party down.
Yes, see, man.
And also the coach was unique.
Yeah, you just stole my reason why why you stole one of my reasons. So Wales, I think quite simply, Warren Gatlin is going to Springbok 2019 everybody with just kicking for days and just keeping it like so simple. And by keeping it so simple, everyone gets to buy in. So that's the reason why they're going to make it out the group. The reason why they won't make it out the group is because they don't have enough Dragons players in their side. But Kooks stole my thunder. I'll kick things off with our favourites, the Wallabies and Eddie Jones. Australia are going to win the World Cup because of Eddie Jones. That is just simply the reason why they'll win it. He is going to mastermind something somewhere, somehow, and he has the ability to do it for multiple games, and they have the ability to go on and do it for him. The reason why they won't win the World Cup is Sama Karevi is injured somewhere along the line. They need him the whole way, non-stop. Kooks, I'm going to lean straight back on you. The Aussies.
Yeah, it's true. I think you stole my one as well. I think Eddie Jones is the big key in them winning the World Cup. I think it's not surprising for me. Like Eddie Jones can sort of see themselves. I think also under Eddie Jones, I think the World Cup gives them more games, so there's more time for them spending together each other. And I think he'll fancy himself to beat Wales and to beat sort of Fiji and Georgia, and then knock off. I'm sure you'd love to play England in the quarterfinal. Knock off England. I mean, I know Argentina beat them last week, but they do tend to play well against Argentina. And I think he's probably have a plan for either one of the top 4 sides in the semi. And in a semi-final, I would hate to be playing Australia. So I think Eddie Jones is the key. And the reason why they won't win it is consistency. I mean, they are a fairly young side, and they've shown that inconsistency, like just the last 3 years under Dave Rennie. I think that's what's going to hurt them. I mean, like we saw them be horrific against the All Blacks and then beat the Springboks 3 times out of 5 in the last 3 years. You're like, where did those performances come from? So I think consistency is gonna be their big downfall again.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned most of it. There's still a very good team in there, somewhere in there, and the reason why they could win they will win the World Cup is their 23 hasn't really played with each other, which is maybe a disadvantage. So we haven't really at one time seen all of their good players play together. And yeah, maybe there's something that can be cooked up there. Yeah, I'm slowly selling off my Eddie Jones stock. I don't know if I would put him as reason number 1, but we haven't really seen a time where Hooper, Valentini, that sumo wrestler from La Rochelle, Slipper, Tupou, Bell, Cooper, Karevi, Ikitau, Bataya, Naukani Tanawase, all of those players have all played at the same time. So that could be the reason why. The reason why they won't is you can't fire a coach a year before the World Cup and win. And I need to run my Dave Rennie agenda. So I need Australia to make an exit stage right at the end of the World Cup, at the end of the quarterfinals.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, finishing off. I don't know how you guys want to do this. You want to tackle Fiji, Georgia, Portugal at once?
Let's start with Portugal quickly, because Fiji and Georgia is quite interesting. Yeah.
You go.
Look,
You
Portugal.
Thala, you run
Yeah.
those three, and then we can jump in.
Yeah, look, Portugal is just very in a big unfortunate group. Just I think considering like just the four teams all have a big chance in making it, and they all probably. I mean, Kooks. I think this could be the group where there's three or four teams even that have 3 wins in a row. So this would be the team to obviously run up the score against. So yeah, that might be a bit of a problem. But Portugal, they did pretty well against Georgia, I think, in the Rugby Europe Championship this year, if I'm not mistaken. So they ran them quite close. So maybe Portugal won't be a foregone conclusion. Yeah, I'm very interested to hear what you guys think as to whether Georgia or Fiji has the better chance. I'll make the argument for Georgia. They've played together longer. They've had more games against top tier opposition. I mean, by like 1 or 2, but it makes a difference. I think they ultimately have the best player out of the two teams, David Niniashvili. I would back him against any of the other Fijian players, honestly. It seems like the Fijian players are all being called back by their French clubs anyway. And, they obviously we know how good the Georgian forwards are up front. And we know now that the Georgian backs have been really good, but they've been really good at their kicking game, which they showed against Wales and Cardiff. There's no reason why they can't beat Wales. They can't really figure out Fiji. It's almost a really bad matchup for them, and it's good maybe that they have Australia first. It could be a way of catching Australia out cold, or you can just get it out the way. Then you can focus on the 2 matches. So the last 2 matches is Wales and Fiji. So that is obviously where they can make their money.
Yeah, I think Thala's knows it's spot again. I think, Portugal. I think, just also a really tough group for them, but they'll probably sort of look to steal a win against Georgia or Fiji. Georgia, I think, for me, the big key for them is their balance. Now they're a lot more balanced than they used to be. They used to be very pack heavy, and in the backline sort of just let them down. But now they've got a great balance, and they've shown the results, and their rugby has grown. I think that motivation of wanting to show that they do belong in the Six Nations, and especially when they come against Wales, is something that'll be very key. I think Fiji, we know how good their backs are. We know the firepower they have, but I think what's going to hinder them is the fact that they're still struggling to find a 10. And Ben Volavo's had many cracks at it, but I still think they need a 10 to sort of marshal that incredible backline together. And so I think that'll be the one thing that hurts Fiji not having a 10, but they still can definitely cause a splash. And plus, I saw that video of them walking up that hill as a team. Anyone who walks up that hill in those conditions deserves to at least make the quarterfinal of the World Cup.
Sure, no brainer. And they were all bound together, which makes stuff a lot worse. Okay, Pool C wrapped up. Final pool in the Challenge Cup. England, Japan, Argentina, Samoa, Chile. England, right. So I reckon the reason why England don't win the World Cup is just because there's just been so many changes and so many squads named. No one knows whether they're coming or going. It's an absolute shit show. Half the guys don't have their passports sorted because they don't believe they're in the squad. I think that's the reason why they don't win. The reason why they do win it is momentum. They could quite easily win every single game in the group and then cruise into a semi-final on the biggest high they've ever been on in their life. So that's the reason why I think they're going to win or lose. Thala, let us know your pearls of wisdom.
Okay. Reason why England wins, I think out of the Challenge Cup side of the World Cup, it's a tight one, but I think they still have the most world-class players in their stocks. Ellis Genge, Mario Toje, maybe make an argument for Jamie George, still make an argument for Courtney Laws, Owen Farrell. Of course, I was going to say that.
Wow, just making
Freddie
sure
Stewart.
first.
I was going to go through it from number 1 to number 15. Freddie Stewart as well. So 4 or 5 players that are world class. I don't think Australia, Wales, or Argentina can say that. So they still have the best raw material. Obviously, they're England, So they should be able to, at the very least, just on talent alone, be able to beat, the teams that they face up until the semi-final at the very least. And then in the semi-final, anything can happen. And like Shaun said, for both of the top two teams here, there's a decent, it's a bit more Hunger Games in Pool C, but there's a way for those four teams to go through. And England faces Argentina in the first game, they can make a run from there. The reason why they won't win is I don't know if England knows what they're good at yet. Like, there's not one aspect of the game that you can say, okay, England is the experts in that. Like, Australia, I think, has a similar problem, but you can say maybe their attack, once Eddie Jones lets them loose a little bit more. You can say for Argentina that they're just ridiculous in the counter-attack. What is England good at? I don't think it's scrumming. I don't think it's the lineouts. I don't think it's attack. I don't think it's defense. I don't think it's kicking. So what is it?
I think Thala's with England, the point he made about Australia is how I feel about England is they're still a very good side there. And I still think they're a side good enough to go to a World Cup final and potentially come back with a win. And I think the fact that also they are underrated, I mean, sort of things have been quiet, they're slightly underrated. I think, they're probably the best out of the top tiers, probably Ireland, France, South Africa, and the All Blacks, and England's probably the best of the rest. And I think they still a side you don't want to play come knockout rugby time, and I still think they're a very good side, and I still think it's a side that a lot of turmoil has happened. Obviously, lost with Eddie Jones leaving and Steve Borthwick coming in, and Steve Borthwick is also a very, very good coach. You've seen the work he did at Leicester and how he turned that ship around. But yeah, I still think there's still a very, very good rugby side in there, and a side that can cause a massive splash, especially how they can get momentum on the other side of the draw. They back themselves to beat all those sides and find themselves in a semi-final, and then anything can happen from there. For them not to win the World Cup I still don't know if they know who's going to start at 10. Are they going the Owen Farrell route? Then you have Manu Tuilagi at 12, but then again, you're hoping for him to get injured. Basically, the last 10 years of England rugby has basically been hoping for Manu Tuilagi to stay fit. Or they're going to go with Marcus Smith at 10 and Farrell at 12. Then who plays 13? So that's a big thing, is like, because you can't judge them from the Six Nations because they try to every single combination. And now I wonder does Steve Borthwick know which combination they need to do? And I think he's got to settle on that now. Coming into the warm-up games, I think he's sort of got to let those oaks cook and let them. If it's Farrell 10, Farrell must play 10 until the rest of the World Cup.
Look, I mean, Steve Borthwick can't even make a decision about his squad. Never mind, who's going to be in his match 23. So I'm not sure if we're going to get a decision there. Look, I hope wherever Borthwick lands, I think the best way for England to go far in this World Cup is to go, and similar to Australia as well, I can't really say it for Wales, but England and Australia must just pick their teams around their best domestic teams, and then obviously add the really good players from the other teams around it. Just say now, we're playing like Saracens. We're going to play exactly like Saracens. We're going to put Elliot Daly in, Lazowski, come back, boy. Jamie George and Makavuni Pola lead from the front. Like, play like Saracens, and then obviously add the obviously good players that you have from all of the other teams around as well. But that's the only way that you can get at least some form of cohesion and, ability to really play well. Australia must do the same with the Brumbies as well. But yeah, Eddie Jones wants to pick more Rebels players than Brumbies players. The Dragons of the South.
Dragons of the South. Aussies love a couple of Rebels. Right, Japan. For me, Japan make it out the group purely based on their World Cup sort of highs that they've got in the last two tournaments. That's, for me, how they make it out. They've got the guys on the field, and they're just going to pull through. The reason why they don't make it is just, frankly, they're just really in diabolical form. So I think that's probably how they, this could possibly be a tournament for the old Japan, the one that we all remember from back in the day. Kooks, what are your thoughts on Japan?
Yeah, I think they've gotten on the radar the last 4 years. I think obviously them not hosting it, sort of kind of forgotten about them. And then I think I think for them, I mean, Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown is still an exceptional coaching group. I think for them they still play such beautiful rugby, and I feel like they will definitely target the Argentina game. I think like Argentina will get to them. I think with Japan, the discipline will come through. It's always been often not a concept after what Michael Leach did on the weekend. Um, but their discipline tends to be good, and I think Jamie Joseph definitely will be cooking something, and still a very, very tricky side to play. And I think barring England, because I think with Japan, everyone tries to dominate them physically. I think England's probably the only side that can. Argentina, they sort of can be hit and miss. It depends on what mood they're in, but I still think Japan can do something. But and I think for them not to make it, I think their side, I don't think they're probably as good as they were 4 years ago, because sort of that side was built so nicely for them. The coming off the momentum of 2015, and then sort of rallied around that core group of players, and now a lot has changed since then. I'm interested to see with the Japanese getting stronger. Yes, so the African fans, the Japanese league has gotten stronger. What effect it will have on their players now, and what they can do. But I do think the side is probably not as strong as they were in 2019.
Yeah, Cooks, I can't even be too positive about it, to be honest. Like, yes, it's a weaker group, which is probably the reason why Japan make it out of their group and maybe make a knockout run. But it seems like the sun is set on, them being, a good surprise team. But they can at least take some hope in their performance last year. I mean, their performance this year has been great, but last year they ran the All Blacks close. Last year they,
Who
gave
didn't, Thala?
Australia a pretty
Who
good game.
didn't?
Sorry?
Who didn't run the All Blacks close last year?
This is true. This is true. I mean, they did pretty well against the French second team, which is probably as good as the teams they're going to be facing now. So there is a good team there, but it seems like it's just been going too long with Jamie Joseph, Michael Leach, and the boys. Obviously, have been playing for the best part of 8 years, and they're obviously going to start going down. If Kazuki Himeno can be, superhuman still, and up there in that conversation for best eighth men in the world or best loose forwards in the world, that's how they win. But I think it seems like it's the end of that era. Cooks, let's go to Argentina. I think a bit of another sleeper pick from this side of the draw. What are the reasons for you?
Well, Argentina tend to do well every 8 years. I mean, I think that's the omen. Like semi-finals 2007, quarterfinal 2011, and then sort of flying again 2015 and 2019. So this could be the year. And I think Michael Checkers after the Wallabies win said something so crucial, that they were able to beat the Wallabies in Australia, and without playing their best game. So they still got a lot more to improve. And I think their side is the balance now they have. I think Creevy's massive in coming back. I think he'll want to have a massive World Cup. And I think, I think the way they set up in the rugby they play, I think, and also Michael Checker, and Thala, you mentioned, great guy to have him to come in for 18 months. And he's got such a great way of turning teams around. I know 2019 probably was 3 years too long for him, but you look at what he did with the Wallabies in 2015, after taking on 2014, I think you can have that same effect with this Argentinian side. And while they won't win the World Cup, Thala, I think this is a story as old as time. Discipline, and discipline. Like, that's the problem with Argentina. that's
Marcus Kremer is so well behaved. Thomas Lavanini is an angel.
I don't think Thomas Lavanini's gotten a yellow card in his last 2 tests, so he's basically on a great run of discipline at the moment. So that's the problem. Argentina is that it's fantastic run, getting a big game, and then Lavanini or Kremer get a red card, and then the ship falls apart. And man, I would have said coaching Argentina was the most frustrating thing in the world, because they can be so good, so brilliant. They can beat any team in the world on their day, and then they'll give away a stupid yellow card, and then lose 50 points a week after. And you think to yourself, like, what is going on here? So discipline that's what I think will hurt them.
Yeah, Cooks, I think you've nailed it fully. Look, my reason why they win the World Cup is they're out of that, the joke side of the draw, they're the most consistent team of the 4. They've kept their coach. I mean, they fired their coach much earlier with Mario Ledesma. They're Chekadev the whole time. They've had some consistency in how they're trying to play. I think the performances that they've had in the first two rugby championship games are a bit of a red herring because they've obviously kept back some of the players like Malia, Sclavi, and Chocobares that can help them, and they were playing late into the French season as well. So, I can see them improving a lot in the upcoming games against the Springboks, and then building some momentum and beating England, and then they find themselves in a quarterfinal. They can beat all of those teams that they face in the quarterfinal: Wales, Australia, Fiji, Georgia, and then they're suddenly in the semi-final. And it won't be a comfortable semi-final. You've got Boffelli that can kick from 50 meters, basically. You've got, I don't think there's a better team, or there's a team with a better wing stock than Argentina, with all the finishes that they have. They still have, there's questions up front, but their loose trio, if there's going to be a breakout player of the tournament, it's Juan Martin Gonzalez Samso. He's going to break someone's ankles like he did Willie Leroux's. So that's the Argentina reasons. The reasons why they don't win: number 9, number 10. I don't trust Bertrano as a international class number 9. Kubeli, I think, is he's not, his best days are behind him. Yeah, I just don't see the careers thing, man. I'm not connecting with that. I don't think he's someone that can actually win you big games. So yeah, Sanchez, it doesn't seem like he can do it anymore himself. But yeah, 9 and 10 is the reason why they can't really maybe go further than the semi-final. Shaun.
Yeah, interesting. Shush, I nearly didn't unmute there. Ooh, man. I think the reason why they make it out their pool, while they win it and why they don't win it are exactly the same. It's just pure, absolute raw passion. And sometimes that raw passion turns into good rugby, and other times it turns into the red mist. So, yeah, it is what it is. We'll wait and see.
I still think Argentina, with the world's longest intro in the national anthem, they use that way to sort of bore teams into like, when they start singing, and then teams are sloppy for the first 20 minutes because they've been standing waiting for them to start singing for about half an hour.
Pins and needles in their feet. One Oaks passed out because he wasn't wiggling his toes. Oh, shit. Okay, Samoa. Now, man, I just don't know. But Samoa, to get out of their group, is probably because the Red Mist beats Argentina and allows Samoa to beat them. And the reason why they don't is the same old, man. Like, they just don't play enough together. But Kooks, you reckon Samoa can make it out the group?
Yeah, I think they can. Out of all the Pacific Island sides, I think they're most balanced in terms of pack-wise. Like the Michael Ayot, Alalotoa, Charles Mawina, McFarlane. Like McFarlane, I think who's going to be the breakout player of the World Cup. I think he's going to be. There's a lot of people who don't know who he is, but I think by the time the World Cup ends, a lot of people will know they don't know why he's so highly rated at Saracens. You got like Jordan Taufua, Chevi Chumanga Allen, and you still got like Stephen Luatua, and then you got Limo Sipawanga, Timana Williams, Duncan Paia. Like, it's such a great balanced side, and it's not just like stacked too much in the backs and then sort of in the forwards lay down. So I think Samoa, out of all those sides, they're very, very balanced, and I think they can cause a lot of damage in that group. So I'm very, very excited to see how they go. And with them as well, I think for them it's just probably combinations and spending time together that could let them down. I mean, obviously, I'm sure these guys haven't played a lot of games together, and there's many games leading up to the World Cup for them to sort of get the combinations in and sort of gel in time, if that's could be their downfall.
Yeah, I think Kooks has nailed it. If there's a team, and I think they beat England rather than Argentina. I think if there's a team that makes it out between Samoa and Japan, I back some.
Did you just say Samoa are going to beat England?
No, I didn't say they will. But if there's between the teams, between Argentina and England, I say Samoa is more likely to beat England than Argentina.
Yo, Borthwick is going to be looking for a job.
Yeah, I like Cook said, the most balanced.
You can coach the Dragons if you want. I'm sure they'll need a
coach. Oh, body shots.
Sean Everett needs an assistant there at Edinburgh. But yeah, most balanced team out of the Pacific Island teams. Good up front, really good loosies. They've got a fly half. That's a minimum requirement there. And yeah, good backline players as well. So, and they've been on a pretty good run actually the last 2 years. They've won basically all of their games against their fellow tier 2 opponents, and they've all won them by like, you know, a handful of points. So it seems like they're just building that winning momentum as opposed to the other team. So they're the ones that you can watch there. So yeah, I would love to see Samoa at least cause a bit of a scare to England.
Oof. Okay, wrapping up the Challenge Cup side of the draw, Chile. Kooks, are they going to make it out their group? Or are they going to crumble?
I think it's a great story for them being there. You know, I think how the way they qualified is fantastic, and I think like they'll be obviously looking for upset, but I think for them and their side, I think it's more just sounds happy to be there. I think they're going to be thrilled, and I think they could possibly knock off a Samoa. We never know, but I think for them, qualifying the way they did it is such an incredible achievement, and I think they're going to be so good to watch, and I'm very excited to see them there.
Yeah, put me into the Rodrigo Fernandez hype army right now. So obviously he scored that crazy try against the USA in the rain or in the mud, basically.
Jeez, wheels, eh?
To win to help win that tie. I'm struggling for the name of their captain, the loose forward, but yeah, he's also like just a brilliant spokesperson for the game for Chile, but also just a really good like busy player as well. I think Kooks, you're not wrong there. Chile, I mean, out of the 4 bottom teams, if it's Namibia, Romania, Portugal, and Chile probably have the best chance of getting a win, probably between them and Namibia, because you could see, and I think Chile has at least 2 chances with both Samoa and Japan to maybe put up a surprise there. So that would be the reason. But it's going to be, I'm not sure if there's been a team that's played their first World Cup that's won. So it's going to be, I mean, obviously like a team like the Springboks is an exception, but it's going to be really tough to have them perform at this level with them playing for the first time, players. I mean, never mind the level of England or Argentina. I mean, the level of Japan pretty much. That's a big reach for them now.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps it all up. So we've gone through Pool A to D on reasons why a side will win or not win the Rugby World Cup. And in this, our 3rd episode of the Rugby Bits and Pieces. Kooks, Thala, thank you so much for your time and joining. It was an absolute blast. To all of you out there, please like, subscribe, and share. We look forward to being on your airwaves again soon. Have a great one. Goodbye.